Yes, you read the title right. I bought everything left at my childhood hobby shop before it closed, cats not included. And yes, as we have previously established, I might be insane. Let's talk about how I got here. For most of this year, I've been visiting my childhood hobby shop once or twice a week as part of my reunion with the hobby of model railroading, and a couple months ago I learned it was going to close this fall. About 6 weeks ago, I purchased the shop's display layout and I started the process of rehabbing it to full working order, which you can see in some of my other videos. But after that, I kept going in regularly, picking up some extra items here and there in anticipation of not being able to buy anything locally in the future once the shop was gone. Then one day last month, the owner offered to cut me an extremely good deal on the entire remaining inventory of the store ahead of the deadline to close up shop. And now I'm not wealthy, and I never have been, so I didn't think it would be possible. But I realized I was being given a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so I managed to secure funding and write the check. Out of respect for the privacy of all parties involved, I won't share how much. Sorry, I know some of you really want to know. But it was the right deal at the right time for both the owner of the shop and for my vested interest in building a model railroad empire. So yes, now in my possession, there is container after container after container after container of track, locomotives, rolling stock, building kits, scenery supplies, paint, glue, books, displays, you name it. But unfortunately, I can't share a complete inventory of everything yet. Partly because I haven't completely counted and organized it, and partly because this video would be 5 hours long if I did. But what I am going to share with you right now are some of the neat curiosities, vintage items, and historical things I found in the store while packing everything up. Right off the bat, yes, as I hinted in last week's video, buying out the entire store was how I managed to get all of the old rolling stock for the in-scale layout. For those of you with an appreciation for steam locomotives, I also received these 2 used in-scale steamers, or most of 2 steam engines at least. The Union Pacific steamer is a shell only for the locomotive, but the tender seems complete, while the New York Central steamer is complete minus the front bogie and the drivers needing to be properly quartered again. This is really cool. From A.C. Gilbert, the makers of American Flyer trains, come these HO scale models. We have an Alco DL600, a boxcar painted for the Bangor and Aroostook Railroad, a Gulf oil tank car, a CB and Q hopper, a boxcar for the New Haven, and a New York Central caboose with the built-in light. The locomotive, hopper, New Haven boxcar, and caboose were part of set number 30325 from the 1957 catalog, which you can see here from gilbertho.org. The set also originally came with a transformer and a loop of track, which I do not have, and I unfortunately don't have a setup ready to run any of this at the moment anyway, but that's a job for another day. Still really cool to have these. You've undoubtedly heard of Lionel, who are famous worldwide for their 3-rail O-gauge trains, but they've also on several occasions attempted to gain a foothold in the HO market. This HO scale livestock boxcar is an example from one of those eras. According to gilbertho.org, this Rip Rossi built model dates to 1956 or 1957 and was made under the Lionel name in Italy. There was also this illuminated Lionel sign from when the store still sold O-gauge products, and another illuminated sign for Aristocraft Trains, a well-loved maker of large-scale models that is unfortunately no longer in business. I cleaned them both up, and while I couldn't get the Lionel sign to turn on, the Aristocraft sign fired right up when I plugged it in. Excellent. Here's 2 1950s vintage passenger cars made by Penn Line. Unfortunately, it seems the trucks are not in great shape, so I don't think I'll try to run these. But it's still neat to see these more than 70-year-old models with their original boxes. The store's display cases also had some of these Bachmann boxcars painted with American historical figures from the U.S. Bicentennial in 1976. And there's also a pretty healthy assortment of new old stock freight car kits from a variety of manufacturers, but most notably these 2 Ambroid wooden craftsman kits. First up is this kit, number 2-6, to build a Southern Railway 92-foot tobacco hogshead car. TrainWeb, a fantastic resource if you're not familiar, says this kit debuted in 1965. The other Ambroid kit I found is Model 2-2, which builds a 56-foot full-door boxcar for the Southern Railway, and TrainWeb says this kit is from 1963. And here's something that took me completely by surprise. This vintage Japanese kit makes a Pennsylvania Railroad boxcar and appears to have some sort of cardboard or paperboard components for parts of the car shell, with wood and cast metal for the rest. The trucks are sealed in plastic with what may be a 170 yen price tag attached to them, and there's also this marking here that may be a 310 yen price tag for the rest. I can't be sure, but if those are the prices, then the body kit and trucks together would have originally sold for 480 yen whenever this was new. The instructions are also almost entirely in Japanese, which I do not currently speak or read very well, so Google Lens, while not a definitive source for accurate translation, will do just fine for our purposes today. I can't determine exactly when this kit was made, but it looks to be about 60 to 70 years old, and was sold by Tenshido Model Shop, located in Ginza in the Chuoku ward of Tokyo. Tenshido still operates out of that area today, making high-end train models in both Japanese HO and N scales. There's also a decent-sized assortment of vintage spare parts, partially complete locomotives, and other used models I don't have much information on. There's also a very large collection of reference books, photo albums, and more, including these locomotive quarterlies and some books with really interesting information on railroads of the past, which I intend to dive into as I have time. On one of my more recent trips to help clean out the store, I also received about 100 pounds of old catalogs, Walther's reference books, promotional material, and more. I always love looking through stuff like this and seeing what was offered for sale in the past. In the 2003 catalog, I even found a listing for my first HO scale train set, which of course I still have, an Amtrak Patriot with an F40PH and 3 Amfleet 1 coaches in Phase 3 livery. I also found the old pricing on things to be particularly interesting, especially for items that are also sold today. Here's Walther's previous run of Amtrak Viewliner 1 sleeper coaches with a retail price of under $30. Now, some of you may know they just released a new run of these with improved and updated tooling for their proto line that retailed for $140. Yes, I did buy some of those. Not at that price, though. This particular model here of a Viewliner in Amtrak's new Phase 7 paint is one I pre-ordered from Riverdale Station before I knew the shop would be closing. There were even some VHS tapes. Remember those? Fortunately, I still have a nice working VCR, so I can watch these, but I can't show you much of them because of copyright restrictions. I'm still excited to sit down and enjoy them privately at some point when I have time. Here's a neat train clock from Lifelike, decorated for their Proto 2000 line of products. I put a battery in the back, and as expected, it began ticking again, but then I saw this door covering a place for 2 additional batteries. I put those in too, and then this happened. That's pretty cool. This is going on the wall in my train room for sure. This vintage device from Tyco is an electric steam whistle that hooks up to the AC terminals on a power pack. I hooked this one up and... The bearings are definitely a bit noisy, but the rotating wheel still forces air through these flutes to make a convincing steam whistle sound. Awesome! I also received this pair of Kato RDCs in N-scale, decorated for New Haven. I was told these were DCC conversion projects that may still need a bit of work, and while I'd love to show you them in operation, I don't currently have a DCC setup hooked up to test them with. We'll take another look at these in a future video. Moving on to new merchandise. Boy, is there a lot of Kato Unitrack stuff. But of particular interest to us here is this DC converter, which, from looking at the regular Kato turnout controls, may be our ticket to getting the switch panel on the layout working that I had been having trouble with. We can probably hook this DC converter up to the AC accessory terminals on the controller and safely provide power to all those switch machines, but that's a project for another day. There's also plenty of microtrains rolling stock and a good bit of replacement couplers and trucks for N-scale stuff, which will come in handy for rehabilitating some of the rolling stock on the N-scale layout that's missing those pieces. And I definitely can't show the entire enormous selection of paint at once, so you'll just have to take my word for it. There's hundreds of cans of spray paints, jars of acrylics, containers of various types of glues and adhesives, decal solutions, so on and so forth. Another thing I can't show you right now is every building kit, both new and vintage, from Walther's, Atlas Microengineering, and others, as well as some of the pre-built buildings from Woodland Scenics and Walther's Train Line. There's an entire tote full of DCC decoders, wiring supplies, power packs, control stations, and other electronics. Plenty of decals from a variety of eras and railroads, weathering supplies, scratch building supplies, and an untold variety of detail parts for almost any type and era of locomotive rolling stock or building you can imagine. Seriously, there's probably a few thousand individual packages of everything from brake wheels to brass stamping to handrails to coupler cut levers to locomotive valves to air horns to... I've hinted in other videos, both here and on my main channel, that for the past month or so I've been extremely busy and constantly out of time to do things. Well, I hope now you can understand why. I've spent countless hours over the past several weeks packing items up in the store, moving them to storage, organizing, sorting, counting, you name it. As of publishing this video, I've gone through over 1,000 items so far, and there's probably still 80% of the stock remaining. It's a monumental task that could take me the rest of this year just to get an idea of exactly what it is I've got. So now I'm sure the burning question on all of your minds is, what in the world am I going to do with all of this stuff? Well, you know how the saying goes. When one door closes, I'll see you next week.